For the past 6 months, accused murderer Luigi Mangion has been transient, moving from place to place without a permanent address. All that's changed now, with Mangion's new address, 1100 Pike Street in Huntingdon, Pennsylvania, at the State Correctional Institution. For 1 week, Mangion has been behind bars there, at the oldest operating prison in all of Pennsylvania. And meanwhile, his apparent motive and disturbing manifesto.
On December 4th, 2024, most New Yorkers were going about their day, unaware that a tragic event was about to unfold. For Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, it would be his final day. On that early winter morning, while the city buzzed in preparation for the annual Rockefeller Center Christmas tree lighting, a targeted attack occurred in the heart of Manhattan. Around 6:45 a.m., Thompson was walking toward the New York Hilton Midtown, where his company was holding its investor conference. Little did he know, a person dressed in black with a gray backpack had been scouting the area, waiting patiently for several minutes on West 54th Street. Surveillance cameras captured the individual standing still, ignoring the passing commuters while focusing intently on Thompson as he crossed to the opposite side of the street. The shooter then calmly crossed the street, closing the distance between them, before raising his firearm and firing multiple shots. Thompson was struck in the calf and back, collapsing to the ground. Witnesses described the attack as swift and calculated, with the shooter remaining calm and collected, even adjusting his weapon after it appeared to jam, before firing again as he moved closer to his target. As the shots rang out, a woman standing nearby fled in terror, and Thompson barely had time to turn and face his attacker before succumbing to his injuries. The chilling moment was all captured in surveillance footage, providing investigators with a clear trail of evidence. For days, the nation anxiously followed the search for the man responsible for the shocking murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Despite the clear image painted by the footage and witness accounts, the gunman's identity remained elusive.
Luigi Mangion's portion of his grandmother's $30 million will is up in the air after his arrest for murder. The suspected killer's grandmother left her fortune to not only her children, but her grandchildren as well. But that comes with a huge caveat, one that Mangion might not be able to escape from. Mary Mangion, Luigi's grandmother, was the matriarch of 10 children and nearly 40 grandchildren. Her husband, Nick Mangion Sr., built a multi-million-dollar empire, which included businesses like country clubs, radio stations, and nursing homes. The family matriarch passed away last year and left her millions in a trust that could be accessed by her 10 children. One of her 10 children that can access that trust is Louis Mangion, Luigi's father. But problem is, her will specifically stated anyone charged, indicted, convicted of, or pleads guilty to a felony would be cut out. The will reportedly states, quote, "It is my precatory desire that the trustees particularly consider invoking their discretion to implement this section if the felony is a common law felony, a statutory felony, if it is the codification of a common law felony, a heinous felony, any felony involving a physically violent act against another person or property, or any drug-related felony involving distribution or intent to distribute any type of drug or illegal substance. The decision of the trustees is conclusive, final, and binding on anyone. It is my precatory wish that the benefit of the doubt is not given to the individual." Essentially meaning Luigi's portion of the $30 million, which has reportedly been estimated to be worth more, he could see none of that, given he's accused of murder in one state and faces charges in another. In Pennsylvania, where Mangion was arrested, he faces charges including forgery, carrying a firearm without a license, tampering with records or identification, and presenting false ID to law enforcement. Meanwhile, in New York, where United CEO Brian Thompson was gunned down, Mangion faces charges including 1 count of murder, 2 counts of second-degree criminal weapons possession, 1 count of second-degree possession of a forged document, and 1 count of third-degree criminal weapons possession. Despite seemingly being cut out of his grandmother's will, that hasn't stopped Mangion from retaining a high-profile lawyer to help fight his case. Last week, he retained former Manhattan prosecutor Karen Friedman Agnifilo to represent him in his New York case. If that last name sounds familiar, it's because she's the wife of Sean Diddy Combs' defense attorney, Mark Agnifilo. And like Combs' case, Mangion's case continues to dominate the headlines after his arrest last week. He was arrested last Monday at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, about 4 hours west of where he once attended college. It was there the 26-year-old was eating a hash brown, sitting alone at a table with his laptop and backpack when he was was recognized by a customer who alerted an employee who then called police. According to his criminal complaint, officers knew right away they had their guy. But when police asked him for ID, he handed them a New Jersey ID with the name Mark Rosario. And when he was asked if he had been to New York recently, he became tight-lipped and started to shake. He later gave officers his real name. And when he was asked why he used a fake one, according to police, he said, "I clearly shouldn't have." In his backpack, police found several items, including a black 3D pistol with a loaded Glock magazine, a 3D printed silencer, the fake New Jersey ID, which police say was also used to check into a New York hostel, and a handwritten note, which officials say was his manifesto, which reportedly included lines of "I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done," as well as "these parasites had it coming." While United Healthcare has stated neither Mangion or his parents received insurance through their company, officials believe Mangion was driven to kill Brian Thompson by his anger towards the health insurance industry. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch also announced more evidence against the suspected shooter.
It was Luigi Mangion, the 26-year-old University of Pennsylvania graduate, now wanted for one of the year's most shocking crimes. Initially, Mangion tried to maintain his cover, handing over a New Jersey ID, one of several fake documents he had on him. But his facade began to crumble as officers pressed him further. When asked if he had recently been in New York, Mangion froze. His hands shook, his voice faltered, and the tension in the room became palpable. Officers could sense that the truth was slipping from him. Officers noted the drastic change in Mangion's demeanor, proof they believed they had the right person. Realizing the game was up, Mangion eventually admitted his identity. When asked why he had lied, his response was simple yet revealing. "I clearly shouldn't have," he said. Before becoming the center of a nationwide manhunt, Mangion was seen as a young man with limitless potential. At just 26 years old, he had an impressive resume: University of Pennsylvania graduate with degrees in engineering and computer science, praised for his intellect and ambition. To those who knew him, he was a driven individual with a future as bright as his academic accolades. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. A 26-year-old Ivy League graduate, former high school valedictorian, and the son of a wealthy and influential Maryland family, Mangion's life began with privilege and potential. He graduated at the top of his class from the prestigious Gilman High School in Baltimore in 2016, earning valedictorian honors for maintaining a high GPA. He captained the school's robotics team, won academic scholarships, and built a reputation as a kind and hardworking student. From there, he attended the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned dual degrees in engineering, a Master of Science in Computer and Information Science, and a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science with a minor in mathematics. Mangion thrived academically, working as a teaching assistant and founding a video game development club during his time at Penn. In the summer of 2019, he was a head counselor for Stanford University's Pre-Collegiate Studies program, further solidifying his image as a rising star. After leaving Penn in 2020, Mangion's life seemed to take a different direction. According to his LinkedIn, he worked as a data engineer at TrueCar, a role that showcased his technical skills and continued to build his career in the tech industry. But the company confirmed that his employment ended in 2023. Between January 2022 and April of that year, Mangion lived in Surfbreak, a co-living community in Honolulu, Hawaii. Back pain became a major source of his frustration, as he could no longer enjoy surfing, an activity he had hoped to embrace due to a chronic back injury. His frustration grew, and by April 2022, Mangion left Surfbreak, citing his physical limitations. Members of the community noted a noticeable change in him. He returned briefly to Hawaii in 2023, where he started a book club with controversial reading material, which caused discomfort among some members. A few of them ended up leaving the club because of this. Mangion's online activity also began reflecting his growing disillusionment. His Goodreads account showed that he had read works like Industrial Society and Its Future by Ted Kaczynski, The Unabomber, as well as books critiquing the healthcare industry. On X, formerly known as Twitter, he reposted quotes like, "It's no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Before Luigi Mangion's life took a dark turn, there were already signs of trouble that worried those close to him. Family and friends noticed a growing sense of isolation in the months leading up to the event. His social media presence dwindled, and posts on X from concerned friends painted a picture of someone who had cut himself off from the world. "Nobody has heard from you in months," one post from October read. While another post from July pleaded, "I don't know if you're okay or just in a super isolated place and have no service, but I haven't heard from you in months." When Luigi Mangion was arrested, investigators found a handwritten manifesto that offered insight into his growing resentment towards corporate America. according to Joseph Kenney, the chief of detectives. The document expressed ill will towards corporate America. Though specific details were initially withheld, 2 law enforcement officials familiar with the document's contents revealed that it specifically criticized healthcare companies, accusing them of prioritizing profits over patient care. For Mangion, this manifesto wasn't just a collection of grievances, it was a culmination of years of frustration and disillusionment, laying the groundwork for the events that followed. Now, setting the documentary-style commentary aside for a second, I want to give you my 2 cents on this entire story. First of all, this has been one of the most talked about stories on social media over the last week, and Luigi Mangion has, as of today, been captured by law enforcement. The response to this entire situation isn't exactly what you would expect, or maybe it is, considering the circumstances. I say that for 2 different reasons. Number 1, someone was, at the end of the day, brutally murdered. When it comes to death of any kind, I like to approach these types of topics with a more respectful tone.
They probably are housing him in a unit, but keeping him away from others until they can do like what I would call a threat assessment to see, would he be okay to interact with others and others to be okay to interact with him.
He isn't in solitary confinement, but the other part you said is correct too, that he's having limited interactions with other inmates. So what do you think his day-to-day could then look like? If he's in a cell completely alone, I know that the DOC mentioned that inmates do have time outside if they so choose to use that time. But what do you think his day-to-day may look like?
Probably, in the morning, get up, have breakfast. I'm sure medical staff are probably entering his unit, to check on him and other inmates to see if there's any issues that need to be addressed. I'm sure he's probably having some interviews with law enforcement, maybe not every day, but I'm sure at some point of the day, he's probably being interviewed. And I'm almost certain that psychological staff, team members are probably making rounds on a daily basis, along with the executive team members are probably monitoring all of his activities. And I'm also certain that I'm sure he's probably given some limited recreational time, whether it's, taking him to the recreation area or in a certain unit, they may have an area where he may be able to, have a little bit of time outside of his cell. So that's probably what his day-to-day is looking like right now.
I want to make it very clear I do not condone any type of violence, nor do I celebrate the death of another human being. Now, with that little disclaimer out of the way, we need to talk about the real side of this entire topic because healthcare companies and the damage they've caused to real lives is a real conversation we need to have. Do I feel sorry for the families who are going to be paying the price in terms of emotional pain? Yes, I do. However, when it comes to a story involving one of the shot callers at a healthcare company, we're talking about the CEO here. So in this case, the shot caller of a company that has ruined countless lives, just being brutally honest, I really don't have any tears to give. And this seems to be the general stance on this entire conversation. From what I've noticed, most people are leaning towards not only feeling indifferent about the victim in this case, but also celebrating Luigi Mangion as a hero. Social media, in a way, thrives off meme culture, especially when it comes to viral stories like this, and that's why tweets like these have become the general consensus. The screenshot and memes about Luigi Mangion circulating on social media, including one saying, "No, don't get caught by the police, you're so sexy," or the one with a Tony Soprano picture, and the caption in this house, "Luigi Mangion is a hero, end of story," really highlight the twisted sense of humor and dark admiration some people have for him. While it's easy to laugh at the memes, the deeper issue here is the anger and frustration towards healthcare companies like United Healthcare. Many people are coming out to share their personal experiences with the company, some of which are truly horrifying. One example comes from a TikTok video where a mother shared a heartbreaking experience she had with United Healthcare involving herself and her baby. It's moments like these that show why there's so much resentment building toward healthcare providers. It's not just about this particular tragedy, but the long history of negligence and profit-driven decisions that have harmed real people.
Let me just start off this video by saying I do not condone violence by any means, but let's talk about what happened today with the United Healthcare CEO. Assuming this guy has a family, no one deserves this. But as a mom who was 9 months pregnant sitting in the emergency room with my 1-year-old baby, being told she had a giant brain tumor that was causing her brain to essentially swell out of her head. She sat in the hospital for 3 days. She needed to be transferred to New York City so she could have emergency brain surgery. And instead, we sat in the hospital for 3 days because United Healthcare refused to approve the transfer via ambulance from the hospital where we live to another state. And at that point, I was ready to just get in my car and take her there myself, but United told us if we left the hospital by our own will and it wasn't via ambulance, they were not going to cover her at the next hospital we went to. And I vividly remember being on the phone with United Healthcare for days and days, 9 months pregnant, about to give birth alone while my other baby was sitting in a hospital room. And again, this isn't to condone violence whatsoever. All I'm saying is that I do not doubt for a second what the motive of that suspect was.
You're absolutely right. Hearing these real-life stories brings a level of gravity and understanding that numbers and policies simply can't convey. The mother's experience with her baby's life-threatening condition and the lack of care from the healthcare system really underscores the frustration and pain that people endure when they feel neglected by the very institutions meant to protect and care for them. When you consider the systemic issues within healthcare companies, it's not just about an individual story, it's a broader pattern of corporate behavior that affects countless lives. This situation, much like the tragedies you've discussed with rappers and other figures involved in violence, is a reminder that every action has a ripple effect. It's difficult to fully comprehend the extent of these actions without understanding the human side of the story. The frustration and anger people feel, whether it's directed toward healthcare or other industries, often comes from feeling like their voices and needs are ignored in the face of profit-driven decisions. You're absolutely right. Stories of violence can often seem senseless and chaotic, and it's hard to truly grasp the mindset behind such actions. However, when you take a step back, especially in a case like Luigi Mangion's, there are deeper layers at play. In this case, the frustration with corporate behavior, particularly from companies that profit at the expense of people's well-being, plays a significant role in shaping his actions. It's important to acknowledge that while the crime itself can't be justified, understanding the systemic issues that drive individuals to take extreme measures can help create a more nuanced conversation. When people feel trapped by a system that ignores their struggles and well-being, whether it's in healthcare, employment, or other areas, there can be a tipping point where they feel that they have no other recourse. This doesn't excuse the crime, but it does open up a broader conversation about the real impact of these corporations on everyday lives. It's a reminder that the human cost of corporate decisions often goes unnoticed until it reaches a breaking point. The use of artificial intelligence in healthcare, particularly in the processing of insurance claims, has raised significant concerns, especially when it leads to denials of coverage for individuals who need it most. The example you're mentioning, NH-Predict, an AI algorithm developed by Navi Health and acquired by United Healthcare, highlights how AI is being leveraged by big corporations to streamline their processes, often at the cost of patient care. AI systems like NH-Predict are designed to assess claims and determine the necessity of care based on data inputs. However, the issue arises when these algorithms, while efficient, may prioritize financial considerations over the unique needs of individual patients. This has led to situations where people have been denied critical coverage due to the algorithm's decisions, even though their medical needs are urgent. Such practices create a cold, transactional environment where the profit motive outweighs the actual health and well-being of patients. This is a major point of contention, as these algorithms, often built without a human touch, fail to consider the nuances of individual cases. The result is a growing distrust in AI's role in the healthcare industry, especially when it comes to making life-altering decisions about coverage. This kind of system is a prime example of how technology, when applied without ethical considerations, can exacerbate systemic problems in healthcare and leave individuals vulnerable. The use of AI algorithms like NH-Predict in healthcare, designed to analyze health records and predict the duration of care, has raised significant ethical concerns. While the goal is to streamline decision-making, the downside is that these systems can prioritize cost-cutting measures over patient welfare. When companies focus on profits, cutting corners can lead to situations where people are denied essential care based on algorithmic decisions, rather than individualized assessments by human professionals.
So it's a circumstantial case. There's a lot of building blocks that the prosecution needs to fit into a puzzle in order to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not a done deal at this point. I think at this rate, he has an opportunity to argue identity, that he was misidentified, that this was not actually him. And then based on the other evidence that comes out, potentially linking him to the case, and what we're hearing, he might go with an insanity defense. So right now it's a little bit up in the air. There's a lot of opportunity for him to poke holes in the prosecution's case and form reasonable doubt. I do not think it's an open and shut case at this moment.
A lot of the stories we cover wouldn't be possible without the help of our amazing sponsors like Odoo. I'm sure a lot of you watching this might be business owners or thinking about starting a side hustle. Well, Odoo can help. Odoo is a free all-in-one business management software with tools to help you run your business. I mean, look, I'm a cat mom and I want my cat buttons to get some brand deals. Using Odoo's website builder, I built a site for my cat buttons in just minutes, thanks to easy tools like AI copywriting and drag and drop features. 5 minutes later, boom, check it out. I have buttonsthecat.com. So I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring our videos, and for our amazing viewers, you can start building your site now and get a free domain for the first year with our link odoo.com/lcnews24. Again, that's odoo.com/lcnews24 to try Odoo now for free. This case has really kind of captivated the nation, from different political sides, but also